Hi, this is John Ans with Ashtonwood House Concerts, and we are today previewing for you our upcoming concert on Saturday, October 29th, with the amazing and wonderful Anais Reno. So let's get right to it, and we'll start talking to Anais.
Hello.
Hello, Anais, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Yay.
So we've got this wonderful concert coming up on Saturday, October 29th. And while often at the Ashtonwood House concerts, we have people that people know a little bit about, or, I, I fear that a lot of our audience don't know you nearly as well as they should. So can you just start out by giving us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and where you are right now?
Okay. Hi. I am Anais Reno, and I am a singer mainly of jazz and Great American Songbook standards. And I have been working on this musically for several years now. I'm currently 18, and I'm in my second year of college at SUNY Purchase, where I'm studying jazz voice, and I'm actually in my dorm right now. And that's a Duke Ellington poster right there. So this is how I've been spending my time for a while now.
Awesome. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your background. What got you into music? And obviously, what got you into music so early that you knew you wanted to do something more about it this early?
It's pretty simple. I had a pretty musical family. My mom is a violinist, and my dad is a former opera singer. He stopped that when I was really little, though, but I was always hearing him sing around the house. And I was also starting to sing around the house just for fun when I was 5, 6-ish. And when I was 7, my parents put me in voice lessons. And by the time I was 8, my voice teacher, Sarah Tolar at the 92nd Street Y, suggested that I start singing some standards. She just tested a few on me because she thought my voice might be well equipped for it. And ever since then, I've enjoyed them, and I have spent a lot of time thinking about them and learning it and learning them and having a lot more to learn, and that's why I'm studying it. And the rest is history, as
Yeah.
they say. Yeah.
Well, and I was going to say, it doesn't seem, I mean, I've met you about, I don't know, 9 months ago, and we don't know each other well yet, but from what I can tell, you're not like, a kid who's been like, made to play tennis and who doesn't like kicking and screaming and all that. I mean, you really love this stuff, right? I mean, this is not
Yeah.
just, where your parents said, "Hey, let's put her in voice lessons." I mean, this is sort of who you are, it seems.
Yeah, actually, I never particularly felt from my parents that this was something I had to do. Of course, there was some influence there, especially given that they are musical themselves. But, my dad was always the first person to say, make sure that you're comfortable in life, make sure you have something to fall back on. So I never felt that I was being pinned against the wall or gun against my head, you have to do this or anything.
So anyway, so you've got that. So you're 18, you're in college, you've got this pursuit, both academic and, let's face it, professional now. Um, and then there's a pandemic, sort of, which might, I don't know, I mean, might have been worse if it was just after you got out of college. But how do you manage this new pursuit, which is sort of built on being with people a lot, and get through the end of high school and college?
It was interesting because I was halfway through my junior year of high school when the pandemic started, and I went through the end of high school on Zoom. And by the time I started college, of course, the pandemic still is not officially lifted, but I started college and we were allowed to be on campus and in class. And I was actually pretty thankful that if it was going to happen at any time, it was in high school and not in college when I wanted to be in a room with other musicians, because how do you do that on Zoom, really? And it was, of course, a tough time for everybody, especially anybody who is working in something that requires physical contact and being in the room with people, because it takes a little bit out of you in terms of knowing who you are and how you exist in this art form and as a person. But I am glad that coming to school, people were very open to being safe, but still exploring the music together. So while it was a rough time, I don't think that it completely halted anything for me. And I feel very lucky to be able to say that. I know that's not the case for everybody.
Right. Well, it probably was just before, but you got a CD out, right? Sort of
Yeah.
just prior to or during. I don't know exactly when it hit, but that was an accomplishment, right? To get that out the door and done, sort of, and in good fashion.
Yeah, thank you. I promo. Um, yeah, I guess that's one thing that came out of the pandemic that was pretty good because I don't know if I would have been able to hire those musicians if they would have been available because we recorded it in the pandemic. It was a few months in. It was in August of 2020, I think. So I was 16 and I wasn't in school at the time, and people were looking for work, and I got to actually sit down with Emmett and work on the songs instead of like rush us into a studio that we might have not all been available for, because those are very working musicians.
Well, no one,
And
yeah, I was gonna say no one has worked harder during the pandemic or since the pandemic than Emmett Cohen, who, by the way,
yeah,
is a former Ashtonwooder, and
yeah, you
and we
mentioned,
love him.
yeah.
But what a great way to sort of to launch into the, that sort of the commercial realm. Not that that's what it's about, but that's a good start. That's a good first step.
I, thank you. Yeah, it was a fun experience.
But talking of pianists, who are you bringing with you Saturday night?
I'm bringing Pete Malinverni.
And who's
Yay!
Pete?
He is a lot of things to me. Of course, he is a colleague and he's also a professor at my school. I have him for harmony this year, so it's cool to be able to work with him in and out of school in different contexts. And he has been a dear friend for many years as well. And he will be, when you mentioned this gig and you were talking about the instrumentation, I was thinking about duo gig. I've done quite a bit of duo stuff with Pete, and he's very good at that stuff because he has so much character and personality in his playing while still knowing how to complement the other person and not make it all the Pete show all the time. I think he's particularly good at that. And so we've had a very close working relationship over the last couple of years, and he just seemed like the perfect fit for this, of course. And I knew that I would feel comfortable and we would have a good time getting repertoire together. So it seemed pretty obvious.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, so actually you already I was gonna ask you that later about sort of, how does the duo format sort of, change things, but you're right, it changes mostly for the accompanist, I assume. He's got to
Yeah.
play a few parts.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right. So what about, so you're coming, you've got this wonderful career in college and performing, and you're coming to South Hadley, which I know you still need directions to. You're not quite sure where that is,
Never.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So what about, I've seen a couple of videos where it looks like you've played a house concert before, or things close to it. Tell us about what you think of that compared to, say, your favorite place in the world, Birdland.
Well, of course, it's a very different dynamic. Birdland, especially downstairs, or any of those clubs, because they're not huge halls, there is a sense of intimacy in there. But what I think of as the biggest difference between house stuff and dark, dimly lit club stuff is honestly the lighting. It makes a difference to me. Because there's something about being in a room where you can only barely make out the faces of people that is so different from having them lit in front of you, because there's a sense of we're all in the same playing field when we're all seen in the same light, pun kind of intended.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
And so there's intimacy in both situations, but it's with a different slant, I would say. And it just makes it so that there's more of casualness and maybe a house setting, or that could even be the case in an outdoor setting. And there is a little bit more, perhaps, intensity or performance, potentially, depending on the kind of performer you are, in a dimly lit club setting.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing that comes to mind to me, because the amount of people isn't that different all the time. There are small clubs, but I think that's a huge thing for me.
And we also, just so you know, you won't have to worry about, we don't have a very obtrusive wait staff. You won't have to worry about a lot of dishes and
Cling, clang,
no
like
one's
a
gonna
bunch of
no one's
clanging of
gonna
dishes,
no one's gonna drop a
bartenders.
tray coming out of the kitchen. So
It's the ambiance,
yeah, you'll have everybody's undivided attention. So then we'll wrap this up by talking about, since we were talking about repertoire a little bit, and standards and the Great American Songbook. And I know I've already seen another one of our Ashtonwood friends. I've already seen Benny interview you about, how do you come to love this music, and so on and so forth. And it is interesting, between a violinist and an opera singer, how much Sinatra did you have in the house? Because I had a ton of Sinatra in the house, but I had a much older father songwriter of that genre. And yet you obviously got exposed to this and really took to it.
Honestly, we didn't have any Sinatra in the house. We didn't really have jazz in the house. That wasn't much of a thing until I started doing it. And even so, it's not that it's playing constantly. I'm usually the one who comes up to my parents and says, did you hear this record? Though my mom in recent years has been starting to do a lot of Monk and Bix Beiderbecke. So I have gotten exposure to that particular side of the music through her.
Right.
But yeah, I wouldn't say that I grew up with it playing in the apartment.
And then I would just say, for someone who has this great love, as I do, for the Great American Songbook and for Sinatra, you chose a much more interesting path for your first CD set, right? Ellington and Strayhorn is not Rodgers and Hart, right? It's a slightly more, well, sophisticated, type of, it's a little, it's not as fluffy, right? It's not just your typical standard. How did you choose that?
Well, actually, it was my mom's idea to make it my debut album, because I had, just before we were conceptualizing the idea of doing one, had just done a set at Birdland of Ellington and Strayhorn tunes. And through doing that, I came to realize how deeply connected I felt to the material. I felt that it sounded like something of, if you cracked my brain open, what music would it make? I felt that the complexity and the nuance of all the lyrics and melodies, and God, they're such story songs, not in a theater way, but in the sense that there's real stories and characters and passions and opinions in that music. And I always sometimes categorize songs with a 3-check box system. Does it have a good melody? Does it have a good harmony? Does it have a good lyric? That kind of thing. And a lot of those tunes, especially the ones that I have come to particularly love over the years, they're just 100% there to me. And that's something that excites me a lot as a person and as a singer. And so my mom thought, well, if you're going to try to represent yourself in an album and make a first statement, what else would you do? And it made perfect sense.
It sounds like that was really good advice.
It was good advice.
Yeah, and it's a great album, and you will have some on hand, I trust.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. So anyway, well, look, I will not keep you any longer, because I'm sure you've got something, if not homework or a class or who knows what. But we are so excited to have you here on the 29th. You and Pete both. We can't wait.
Thank you so much for having us. We're both very excited.
It is our pleasure and honor, and we can't wait. So until then, Anais, study hard, be safe, stay healthy, and we will see you very, very soon.
Yay, thank you.